And I don't. I'm on mic now. Yep. And you'll see that at the bottom center of the screen, that indicator that's going to the right, green, and then it almost touches yellow. That's every now and then I'll glance over just to make sure we're still picking up audio.
Yeah, got it.
But yeah, I don't. I kind of model mine after Rogan. You ever listen to Rogan's podcast?
Sometimes, usually like clips, sort of things.
Okay.
Like there's like specific subjects. I don't know.
Swing it a little closer.
Like AI stuff.
There you go. Perfect. Well, so I kind of modeled mine after him. Air cheers, by the way.
Yeah.
All right, Bryan, my coworker Bryan, thank you for doing the
Cheers.
podcast, buddy. I appreciate it.
You're very welcome. Happy to be here.
But and you're gracious enough for us to host the recording. My roommate was actually gone this weekend. I didn't even think about it, but I didn't know she was going to be gone. We could have done it in my place, but this is probably more comfortable for you. But yeah, I model it after Rogan. So I don't have an intro. I don't edit. I don't do intro and outro music. It's just a conversation with two people. I just start talking to them. There's no agenda, because I just like to hear other people's origin stories, where they grew up, important people in their lives, so whether it was family or friends, how they got where they are now. What do they want to do with the rest of their life? And the whole impetus of it was to document people telling their stories so that generations to come can hear people tell their own story instead of just hearing about it from people that knew them or whatever.
Yeah, that's actually really cool. Because I had a similar idea a while ago, more of like, I don't know, one of my business ideas or one of my ideas that I always get, where it's like a more like end of life sort of thing, like interviewing.
I think we talked about this at work.
People with terminal illnesses and going through and being like, hey, let's sit and have someone interview like grandma before she passes.
Yes,
and then
we did talk about
always
this at
have
work.
like something that we could pass on to the great grandchildren or something.
Yes, that's exactly. So you had the same idea I did, and the impetus for this was my mom passing. She passed 2 years ago, and so I didn't get a chance to do it with her. But she originally had the idea in the 90s with her mother. Because my grandma was born in 1908 and died in the 90s. So if you can imagine what she saw in her life.
Yeah. The
stories,
huge events.
Yes.
And
she even then was just back in the 90s. She was like just with an audio recorder. She never got it done. And I didn't get to do it before my mom passed. But when she passed, I was like, I got to do this now.
Yeah.
I did get to interview my dad before he passed. So that's cool. Like if I ever want to hang out with my dad, I can just watch the podcast.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I like what you were talking about is setting it up for families. Like once a member gets to the point they're in hospice or they know they have 6 months.
Yeah. Or even going through like the beginning stages of like dementia or something like that, where they'll, that stuff would potentially be lost
forever. So you want to catch them before.
Yeah.
God, that's a brilliant idea.
Or even
dude.
I think about like stories that like my mother tells, like when the family gets together, and it's like stories about like her grandmother or her her grandparents, where like there would be no one would ever know about them
until you capture it.
Dude,
you should totally start that business. I mean, you probably have more technical knowledge with software, but I can show you how I do it. It's super easy to set up. It's a low entry point. As far as startup costs, because I use that big powered mixer, but that's because I was a DJ for 15 years and I use it to run sound for live bands.
Okay,
but you can simplify it. You don't need that much equipment.
Yeah, I've thought about I've thought about doing, because I've thought about like streaming on my free time, like playing video games and stuff like that, or even just like, I don't know, React stuff. Probably not as like a job or anything like that, just because I think it's kind of like, only like the 1% basically of people who do that can really.
But I meant your idea about doing it for families. That's something that you could start as a business and advertise, and it's real simple. I also have a tabletop USB microphone that just plugs directly into the laptop. If you want to do like the self-recording here, you don't have a guest. And it's a studio mic, so it has a bigger halo of, like, these are dynamic mics, so they're only going to pick up what's in front of it. But this one, I've done table interviews with people where we just set the mic between us, and you can hear, it sounds great, and it's super portable and easy. So it's really versatile. But yeah,
I'll definitely have to consider it more too. I was always like, my only main apprehension about it was like I just don't think that I would be a very good interviewer. You know,
you're smart,
or at least like come up with.
You'd be a great interviewer.
Well, I don't know if I would be able to come up with the questions, but now I think that I don't know. I think that using like different tools that are available now, it makes it a lot easier.
Yeah, and again, it's just a conversation. I always tell people we would be having the same this would be exactly the same if we were at a pub having a beer or at a coffee shop. There just happens to be microphones in front of us.
Right.
We're just hanging out. I don't have a script. You don't have to come up with questions. You just talk to the person. But I can already tell you're going to be fine because you project very well. Your voice.
I do. Well, yeah,
awesome.
I think it's because I'm slightly hard of hearing.
Oh, really?
I think a little bit from working in the tire shop, but having a deep voice, like I've had my voice has been this deep since I was like 3 years old.
Seriously?
I'm dead
so you
serious.
didn't have the ball drop thing in puberty where your voice was already low?
I had like a lot of like I don't know. I would get like tonsillitis like 6-7 times a year.
Did you eventually have your tonsils out?
I had my tonsils and adenoids taken out, and then my voice went like I sounded like a little kid again. Yeah, well,
really?
My voice went to what a little kid should sound like.
What it should have been. Okay.
Yeah, but before that, I had a really deep voice. I was like,
and then as you became a teenager, it dropped again.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Jeez. Oh, so yeah, we started it in the test recording, but where were you born?
Oh, I was born in Walnut Creek, California.
Is that by the Bay Area?
Yeah, so that's like the East Bay, kind of near like Concord, like Tracy and like San Ramon.
Oh, so it's because you have the Bay, San Francisco, Oakland, but then you can go over some hills, and that's Walnut Creek. Is that right?
Yeah. So you know where TIA was in like San Ramon?
And I forgot the name of the town, but I know.
Yeah.
What's that town?
Livermore.
Called? Yeah, Livermore.
So Livermore is like a little bit farther east of like Walnut Creek, Brentwood, Antioch.
Is it off the same main freeway that goes into the Bay Area though?
Kind of. So that main highway that goes through
Livermore,
and Pleasanton, that's going northbound.
Okay.
So there's two highways. There's 880 and 680, and they both run kind of parallel of California, I believe.
That sounds familiar.
In hindsight, yes, I don't want to sound like an idiot, but and then there's like interchanges that allow you to go between them. So you would take one in going towards the other, and then that's where.
He or she?
She's
in frame. I love it.
Mika.
I have an extra guest on the podcast. What's her name?
Mika.
Hi, Mika. You want to be a guest I can get you a mic.
She's just awesome. Investigating.
Well, I did a few years as an over-the-road truck driver, so I actually got to drive through the Bay Area a lot.
Oh yeah. Okay.
In fact, that main bridge that goes, I don't know if it's Oakland, but it drops you literally right into, goes across the bay and drops you right into like downtown San Francisco.
Yeah.
Try navigating those streets. I had to make a delivery in a semi truck with a 48-foot trailer.
I couldn't imagine. That's one of those situations where you see truck drivers driving down the road and you're like, they're not in the right place.
Yes.
I don't know how they got here, but
you should not be here.
But you probably shouldn't be here.
Okay, so born in Walnut Creek, and then went all through school there?
No, we lived there for a few years. So my dad worked in like the semiconductor industry.
Okay, he was in the tech industry in the Bay Area.
Yeah, in the tech industry, and he's like, my dad's like an incredibly smart guy. Ever since he was like a child, he's known what he wanted to do. He wanted to work with electronics. He started like soldering and stuff like that when he was like 10 years old. So
was he in the workforce in the, I'm trying to judge the age, in the 70s and 80s when all the tech boom kind of started?
So he went to the military. So Vietnam started.
Oh, okay.
And then
I just wasn't sure what his age was.
Yeah. So he's there. How old are they? They're in their mid-70s right now.
Okay. So he had to go to Vietnam.
So he had to go to Vietnam.
Okay.
His neighbor worked for the draft board and basically told him like, hey, your number's coming up.
Oh, wow. So he knew.
So he knew ahead of time that he was going to be drafted. So he signed up instead of being drafted because he was like, I'll have a better chance of choosing what I want to do.
I was going to say that would maybe give us some choices instead of just
exactly instead of just being like, hey, you're
infantry.
Infantry, exactly. And he was a smart guy. And he was in college, so he got to finish college.
Okay.
Went in as an officer. This is kind of like what I've gleaned because he doesn't really like to talk about it too much.
Which is pretty common, I think, right?
But he actually went all the way. He became a Green Beret, and like specifically with like electronic sort of training. So Green Berets are like they're special forces, but they mainly go in as like support like local forces in training. So they go in and train them on how to do stuff.
Local forces of that country. Correct. Or local American forces?
Local, like
of that country.
Of that country. Okay. So that's what he was doing in Vietnam, and I think he did like 3 tours. Through there, but ended up leaving. He got a like Purple Heart. I think he was in like a building that was bombed.
Okay.
And he was injured.
Was that, and then did they send him home for good after that?
I think so, but I'm not quite sure what.
Because he doesn't like to talk about it, right?
Yeah, he doesn't like to talk about it. I think there was some like pretty nasty stuff that happened.
Okay. But when he gets back to the States, is that when he starts his career?
No, he goes into actually the television industry. So he goes into he starts selling like a new kind of like camera and film for like news broadcasts. So he starts traveling for that, traveled to England, moved there for the company, and then that's where he met my mom. She was a secretary at the...
She's from New England?
She's from England.
Oh,
yeah.
England.
Yeah,
I'm
England.
Really?
Yeah. My mom's British.
Does she still have an accent?
She does have an accent,
That's awesome.
but, well, people tell me I don't hear it at all because, she spent half of her life here, though, over half of her life now.
But he was traveling for work, a work trip to England, and that's where he met your mom.
That's where he met her. She was secretary at one of the companies that they were doing business with.
Okay, cool.
So they kind of hit it off, got together. I think. How did we get into this? It's kind of a tangent on.
What was that? Did I just hear something?
I heard something also.
Anyway.
But
we were just talking about you growing up.
My dad's work.
How did he get into the tech industry?
Yeah. Okay. So they met, and then he got into. From there, I'm not quite sure. A little bit foggy.
But they met, and at some point, she came back to the States with him.
Came back to the States with him,
and he went. He was still based. He was still based in Walnut Creek area.
Yeah. So he grew up in on the peninsula.
Okay.
On the San Francisco peninsula.
Okay.
And then from there, I'm not sure how he transitioned into the semiconductor industry. But he worked in that industry for like years and years.
And so this time when he got into that would have been the late 70s, early 80s when it was starting to boom?
Like I would say definitely by the time I was born in 83. So he was already in the industry.
Okay.
And from there it was still like not big, it was microchips were basically getting big.
Yeah.
And he made an instrument that is called the spectrometer.
I've heard of that. I know what that is. Yeah.
It used in like the semiconductor industry, the way that they used to make these like silicon chips. They put them in like a vacuum chamber with like a chlorine gas.
Okay.
And the chlorine gas would etch away at the silicon chip.
Okay.
To the levels that they wanted it. I'm not exactly sure the finer details.
We're talking very detailed work.
Yeah, and so they would basically time it. They would be like, okay, based on the chemical reaction, it should eat away this amount of the substance. And so his device, they basically put it in there, and it shines a light on it, and it measures how like the thickness to an atom.
Oh,
of,
Jesus!
Of how much it's been etched away, which just makes better chips.
Yeah, of course.
So he started building those. He left the company that he was working for, started his own business, and was like selling them door to door, basically.
Okay.
And ended up taking off after a few years and getting bought by a larger company.
He sold the business.
Yeah, sold the business, and then was able to retire after that.
Holy crap, that's all. Like, so what year was that where he sold it and was able to retire?
I was like, late 90s.
Oh, so he put in a good 13, 15 years doing that.
Definitely. I mean, he's been in the industry for was in there for years before he started his own company, so he had a lot of connections.
And then after he sold that business in the late 90s, did he actually retire, or did he just start doing something else?
He had a non-compete clause, so he couldn't start his own business in the same sort of
even go to work for somebody.
Or even go to work for someone else.
Okay.
So my dad cannot sit still at all. He's one of those guys that always has to be doing something. The entire time I was growing up, the house was always under construction.
There's always a project.
There's always a hole in the wall. There's always, every weekend, I'm holding wall boards so we can nail it up.
Oh my God, that's great.
So they started a bookstore.
Are we still in Walnut Creek at this point?
No. So actually, after a few years, so when I was in junior high school, we moved to Santa Cruz.
Okay.
Because he was working in after he sold his business and it merged with the larger business. We had to move down there just because he was commuting not just commuting, but he was basically living down in Santa Cruz for 5 days a week.
It didn't make sense.
So we moved down there, and I did not want to do it when I was that young, but in hindsight, it was the best, best place I could have moved.
You were in middle school when this move happened.
Yeah,
and of course you didn't want to leave your friends and all that.
Exactly. I didn't know any better, but yeah, Santa Cruz is an amazing place. It's incredibly beautiful.
Were you in 8th, 9th grade when you moved there then?
I think I was in 6th.
Okay, and then went all through high school in Santa Cruz.
Correct, yeah.
So what was that adjustment, that transition like? I mean, you said it turned out great, but how long did it take for it to become good for you?
Pretty quick. I think after I started going to school, it got a lot better. I think it was being in an unfamiliar place. That sucked, of course.
What was the vibe of Santa Cruz when you were going to school there?
Well, we moved into a town called Aptos.
Okay.
It was the motto of Aptos is where the forest meets the ocean, or where the forest meets the beach.
Okay.
So it's covered in redwoods. Every house is surrounded basically forested.
It's like you're in the middle of the Siskiyous.
Kind of,
but then you're at the beach
hills too, and then you're a quarter mile from the beach also.
Okay.
So it's kind of a ritzier area, more of the it's just more expensive homes there.
Okay.
We lived in our house. It was built on a hill, so you would enter the top floor, and then it had 3 stories that you would work your way down.
Yeah.
And we overlooked a huge valley. It was just beautiful. It was a beautiful place.
So about 6th grade on, you moved there. Siblings? Do you have siblings?
Yeah, I have 2 older sisters.
Okay.
One of them's my sister Jade. She's my half sister.
Okay.
So she's 10 years older than me.
Okay.
But I mean, I've never thought of her as anything less than
a full sister.
My sister. Yeah, I grew up. She's my sister,
And is she still in California?
She's in California. She has 4 kids.
Okay.
She has one who's 22 or about to turn 22, and then she had triplets.
Also. Fun.
Yeah.
Judas Priest, I'm sorry. But at least you get it done, I guess.
Yeah, get it all done in one go. But I mean that's its whole own story too.
So that's Jade, and then another sister?
Yeah, other sister Emily. She lives in Colorado. They just moved to Colorado just a couple months ago.
From California?
From Texas.
Oh, from Texas.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So she works for Chevron.
Okay.
And so they were based in Texas, but she's moved around a couple of times. Her and her husband.
So all going through high school in Santa Cruz. What was your mom? Was she working? Was she a working mom?
Stay-at-home mom.
God, well, your dad did very well, obviously, so she could. That's cool.
Even in the bad times, my parents were like, we do not want someone else raising our kids.
That's freaking cool. I'm glad they were able to do that.
Yeah, which is
it's hard and it's rare.
Yeah, really, really difficult for sure.
Yeah, hell yeah. But you go all through high school.
Most
Sports?
of the way through high school there.
Oh, you finished high school somewhere else?
Well, yeah. So halfway through high school, when I was like 15, I met a girl. Of course, my folks were pretty religious too.
Okay.
So I went to church growing up, and everything like that. So around like 15, I met a girl.
Yeah.
She was older.
Okay.
A couple of years older than me. So she was 18, and one thing led to another, and we started getting amorous.
Right. And this is maybe the part of the podcast I tell my guests, you don't have to share anything you don't want to.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Okay.
No, totally. Actually,
okay.
like this is actually like a pretty good. A pretty big part of my life, I think.
Okay.
That helped. I mean, definitely shape who I am.
I would be happy to hear it if you want, but no pressure. I'm not
so,
trying to get dirt.
So my parents were like, we basically got caught, in the act.
Yes.
And which was incredibly stupid. I mean, I should have known better. I should have been sneakier.
The 15-year-old, a 15-year-old male brain is dumb.
Does not think that way. So, we get caught, and they're like, "No, you two are like you can't see each other anymore," like all this stuff. And of course, like me being a kid, I'm like, "No,
you're not. You're upset about it."
I'm in love.
Yeah.
Like,
yes.
I'm in
First
love.
Yes.
Like, this is it. For me.
Yes.
That sort of thing. So after like 6 months of like us just like getting caught over and over and again.
So your parents tried to set a boundary, but you guys would keep.
Oh yeah, but I was just like.
So you were still seeing each other.
Yeah, I was just like, I'll say whatever it takes to, have you guys stop talking to me. Basically,
right.
I'll
just answer.
And I'm gonna do what
I'll give you the answers you want to hear.
Yeah.
And then leave me alone.
So I got kicked out. And I had to move in with my sister, Jade, up in Tracy, California.
Yep, know where Tracy is.
Yeah,
okay.
right up by Pleasanton and San Ramon. So, started going to high school there.
Was that completely different?
Completely different. Like, way tougher meeting friends. Like, I started smoking cigarettes,
Okay. And you were already were going through some rough times. Because if you
absolutely.
if you had to move that far away, you didn't get to see the girl anymore.
Yeah.
That was the point of moving you.
That
probably
was
to keep you away from her, from the bad influence of the 18-year-old girl.
Exactly. But I wouldn't say it was her influence at all. It was definitely a mutual decision.
Oh, right. No, you guys were. Yeah, both as liable or whatever you want to say. But anyway, end up in Tracy to go the last year or two of high school?
Yeah, that was junior year, like halfway through my junior year. So at that point, I was kind of like, I don't know. I'm pretty sure I was like really depressed as a kid, after all that.
Yeah, that doesn't help.
Being new place, having, a big rift in the relationship with my parents.
Right. So you were still in contact with them, but you were living with your older sister.
I was not talking to them. I was pretty angry.
You were upset. Angry. I get it.
So they would just like get tabs from my sister, but I was not in a good place. Like I said, I started smoking cigarettes. I started drinking.
Yeah.
I started like I don't know. I was like smoking weed.
Mm-hmm.
So I got caught. Like I would ditch school all the time.
Right.
Like I would forge my sister's signature.
Yes.
And like ditch school, or like go just late.
Yeah.
And so I convinced a bunch of people to leave school and to go smoke weed.
Okay.
Maybe not convinced. It was like it was like a bunch of people were like, okay, let's go.
This would be cool to do. Yeah.
And so we get caught by the police.
Were you at out at a city park or something?
Yeah, at a park.
Yeah.
And incredibly dumb. But I mean, honestly, it's freaking weed. Like,
right. Yeah. And at the time, it was more of a stigma.
It was bad.
But
yeah. So I get caught, and at that time, I'm a senior, and I'm like basically ditch school.
Mm-hmm.
And I was with some younger people too, so they didn't make me go back to school.
Okay.
They took the other people back to school, the other students.
Okay.
And so when I went in later with my note saying like, they were like, wait a minute,
You were with that group.
Yeah, you were with that group. The police told us.
Yes.
And so I got caught. Sister found out about it. They called my parents, like all this stuff. And I was just like, I'm done. I can't deal with all this stress right now. I'm out. And so I just left. So I just ran away.
Did you have a car?
I did have a car, but it wasn't really. It was given to me, but it wasn't my name. So I just ran away, basically.
Just packed up a duffel bag and.
No, just left with my school bag.
Oh, geez.
Yeah, just left with my school bag. I was like, I wrote a note and was like, look, this is too much. I'm out of here.
Do you have a plan where you were going?
I went to my friend who sold me weed's house.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So I went to his house and he was like, yeah, man, just you can stay here for as long as you want.
Yeah.
So I stayed there for a while. I bounced around to a couple different friends' houses.
Still in the Tracy area?
In the Tracy area.
Okay.
This leads to a whole other mess that I got myself into where, like, I'm young. I'm 18. I'm a guy. So there's this couple, Jamie and Evan, and they were like the kind of like, I don't know. They were like the punk rock couple, She was hot, and Evan was, I don't know, he was very dramatic the way he looked. But they were in the smoking group that I would hang out with every day.
Okay.
And so Jamie was like, hey, I talked to my mom, and she said that you can stay at our house, that you can live there.
Okay.
And her mom Jamie was like pretty straight edge, was sober.
Oh, okay.
But her mom was like smoked meth.
Oh shit! Okay,
yeah.
hard stuff. Okay.
Yeah, hard stuff, but was like a closeted meth addict. With like
she held down a job and
no, so she was on disability.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so she was on disability for something, but she would just stay in her room all day, and then she would come out in the middle of the night and just clean everything.
After taking a hit of meth,
yeah,
then you have to clean
after binging.
Yeah.
So I'm like, sweet. I go to Jamie's house, and like the first night, she's like, okay, should we go to bed? And I'm like, yeah, absolutely. And she's dating this guy, Evan.
Right.
And I'm like, oh, where am I sleeping? Am I sleeping on like the couch?
Yeah.
And she's like, oh no, you're sleeping in my room.
On the floor or in bed with her?
Yeah. So her bed was a mattress just on the floor.
Right.
And she made me a bed right next to the mattress.
Okay.
I was like,
Yeah.
So needless to say, after like 2 days, one thing led to another.
Okay.
And then this was like the drama of my senior year where Evan wanted to kick my ass the entire time.
So are you still kind of going to class even though you're not living with your sister? You're still showing up to school.
I'm going enough to graduate because like I really put in a lot of work through my first 3 years. So my senior year was not.
Oh, so a bunch of electives and whatever.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
So you're going to finish and get your diploma, but you're not.
Yeah, my only thing was that because I ditched so much that like we had this thing called Saturday school hours.
Yeah, I
where
had that.
Like if you every time you're late you get 1 hour or whatever.
Yeah. Yep.
I ended up with like I had to do like 40 hours of like Saturday school.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, this is at the end. It was like the last like month where I was going in there for 8 hours every Saturday. So I did graduate, but kind of by the skin of my teeth. It wasn't my grades at all, though. It was just based on like the absences.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yep.
So, yeah, Evan didn't like me at all. He was a skinny kid, and I like worked out a lot.
Right.
And
so what was he gonna do in the real world?
Well, yeah, but he was way more popular than I was. So he was like, I'm gonna get like 7 or 8 people to jump you.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, I'm gonna call the police if you do that.
Yeah.
And I'm like, if you want to fight me, let's just go outside right now and fight. If that's what.
So
you
he
really
was actually
want.
Confronting you about this.
Yes.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And there was. This is something I kind of feel bad about, but there was a time where like I remember specifically this was the second Matrix movie had just come out, and he wanted to go see it, so he bought tickets for me and Jamie to go with him to the movies.
Was this before he knew?
No, he knew.
But why did he do that then?
Because he wanted to go see the movie with his girlfriend. This is why I'm saying, like...
I don't understand that.
This is why I'm saying, like the sort of, like, weird drama that I got myself into. But they ended up breaking up. But I did date Jamie for, like, 5 years after that.
Oh, shit,
so we
okay.
stayed together for a really long time.
Okay.
Which was great, but then I moved back to Santa Cruz. Like, I started talking to my parents, like, moving forward when I was, like, maybe 20. So I went, like, 3 or 4 years without talking to them.
Well, so you did get out of high school, got your diploma, and stayed in Tracy for a few more years. What were you doing for work?
Just
odd jobs?
Retail. Yeah,
I mean, still didn't really have a vision for what you wanted to do with your life, kind of a thing?
Not really.
Okay.
Not really, not at all.
Just hanging out, working odd jobs, dating Jamie.
Yeah.
And then at some point when you were 22, 23, you went?
21. So 21, I could buy alcohol, I remember. Excuse me. And I moved back to Santa Cruz. My parents were like, hey, you know, the whole reconciliation.
You'd been in communication with them.
Yeah, I reconciled with them.
Okay. And poor Jade's like, get the fuck out of here. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah.
I'm kidding.
No, I never talked to them either. So, I mean, I kind of left some pretty big rifts in like some relationships that were like that I held very, very dear.
Yeah.
Which I could still, you know, which is always going to be there, you know, in some way, which does, I mean, I guess you could say it's a kind of a regret, but at the same time, like, there's no way that I was going to listen to anyone. You know,
not at that point.
Yeah, not at that point. Like, I just know myself then, and that just wasn't something in my wheelhouse.
Yeah, you knew you had all the answers. You knew what the fuck you wanted to do.
I was smart, I was young, and I knew what was best. Like, why would I listen to somebody else
who's been on the planet for 20 years longer than you
and you know, let's face it, isn't gonna live life as good as me.
Yeah.
You know, I'm just going to do things better. That's how I used to think.
Oh my God.
Which, I mean,
I think every kid does.
Yeah.
Every college age.
I really do.
Yeah.
I think situations though look different from the outside than inside, you know. It's like everyone has their own perspective on any sort of argument or anything, and no one has all the information.
Right, except the two people involved in the relationship.
Yeah.
They're the only ones that know everything.
Yeah.
So get back to Santa Cruz around age 21. Mm-hmm. Did you move back in with the parents or just get your own place?
Moved back into the parents. So this is actually another part that I feel like there, like, certain crises my dad doesn't really like to talk about.
Okay.
So there was an issue where after he sold his business, there was like some sort of like something happened where it had to deal with the stocks.
Oh, a financial issue.
Correct, financial.
Okay.
I don't know if it was like, because this is me just trying to piece together what might have happened, but I don't know if it was like when he sold his business, he got a large amount of stocks in this larger company.
Okay.
And then he sold them, and I think that it's possible that because he sold them without holding on to them for over like a year, he might have been hit with
like a big tax penalty or something.
Yeah,
capital gains.
Capital gains, exactly.
Oh, got it.
But he wasn't aware of it.
Okay.
And so basically, they got hit for this huge tax bill.
Oh shit.
Years later, that took everything from him.
Oh fuck,
yeah,
dude.
they took their house. That took like pretty much everything.
That 3-level house gone.
Gone.
Oh
yeah.
shit.
So
dude.
they had to sell that. That all went to the government. Just like a lot of stuff. They were really, really down and out for like 10 years, 15
so
years.
Did this happen around the time that you moved back to Santa Cruz? Or
yeah.
Okay, so you're 21, 22.
Maybe a little bit after, because I feel like that stuff started happening, and then they walled off all the stairs in the house, and then they like rented out the middle floor.
Oh right.
I took the bottom floor, and then they converted the top floor into like an apartment sort of thing, like a 2-story apartment, or apartment with a loft. And I don't think that was sustainable. Because they owned a bookstore at the time too.
Okay.
And so, you know, the internet, you know, books were on their way out.
Oh, right.
People stopped buying books, you know.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that right there is just kind of the way things go. Like that's just
because this must be around 2004.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right around there.
And once you're back in Santa Cruz, at this point, is this when you started bartending? Because didn't you do a stint as a bartender?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I bartended for a long time. So, well, not a long time, a good amount of time, like
a year or two or more.
Like 5 years.
Okay.
So I moved to after I moved out of my parents' house when I was like I lived there for a little bit of time for like maybe a year, and so 21, 22 I moved in with a coworker. I got a job at Staples.
Okay.
And it was a great job for me. Like it was like whenever you hear people talking about like, oh, this is like what the office was like in the 80s, you know, everyone doing drugs and drinking after work, you know, all this stuff. Like that was kind of like Staples at the time.
Really?
Where it was like everyone was friends, everyone was partying, and the manager was like really cool with it.
Okay.
You know, not really heavy drugs or anything.
Oh,
like
right.
That, but
you know, just
within
some weed,
reason.
maybe some blow now and then, stuff like that.
Not even blow, like pretty
just
much weed.
Weed and alcohol.
But yeah, and so I like thrived in that condition because like it was a little bit chaotic. Like I could get away with a lot, but I still had a decent enough work ethic to where I could get ahead.
Yeah.
So I worked my way up to a manager there.
Okay.
And then from there, I moved in with one of my coworkers to this tiny apartment. It was like this 1-bedroom apartment where he lived in the bedroom and then I lived in the living room.
Right.
And it was $800 a month, and we split it.
Oh,
so
nice.
Yeah, we were paying $400 a month for rent. It was on the top of like this strip mall with like a coffee shop down below on like. We were like a quarter mile from the beach.
This is in Santa Cruz.
This is in Santa Cruz it's called East Cliff.
Okay.
East Cliff, or also called Pleasure Point. Like it's a beautiful place.
Okay.
If you get a chance, look it up because like, or if you go on a vacation to California, go to
Stop
Pleasure
by
Point.
there.
Yeah,
Okay.
because it's a beautiful place. Lived there for a few years, but there's a bar that I lived above called the Castaways.
Okay.
And this dingy little hole in the wall, like
a neighborhood bar.
It was like on the front of it, it's got like these huge like river stones, like, you know, making up one thing, and these huge blacked out windows. But you go in and it's kind of nice. Like it's got, you know, leather seating and like 2 big old pool tables. So that place was really, really bad when I first moved in. Like I would look out my window and I would see like fist fights. Like
it had a rough crowd.
Oh yeah,
when
like
you first
3
moved
or 4
in.
times a week, I would see fights out in the parking lot.
Jeez, okay.
Really bad place at night.
Just power drinkers going there after work.
Yeah,
they get drunk and start fighting.
Santa Cruz, I don't know if it's still that way, but especially in like the early 2000s, it was very, very territorial too. Like. There's this idea where like it sprung from like the surf like culture there, where like, oh, if you're from the west side, you don't surf the waves on the east side. Vice versa.
Okay.
You know, you just don't, and everyone knows each other. They're like, I know that guy. He's a west side surfer, and I hate those guys because they're ruder than we are. Or because I went over there one time and I got disrespected. You know, it's that.
So if they happen to both be at that Castaways bar,
there's going to be fights.
Or
if someone walks into the bar and they say it's their first time in there, they get looked at and they're like, "Who are you? Where are you from?"
Oh, it's one of those where you
places.
get sized up as soon as you walk in. Jesus.
Yeah, exactly. So that place got sold. The new owner bought it, Mike, and then he shut it down. He was like, "I'm gonna shut this place down for like 6 months, something like that.
And do a reset.
Let all the people find everyone that normally goes in there, let them find a new place to go." And then he fixed it up basically. So I started going in there. I was like, I used to call it my living room. Like I would just go in there and like watch TV all day.
That's awesome.
And drink beer.
Yeah.
So I would be pretty broke though. I wouldn't have money, but I would be in there so often that a lot of the bartenders would be like.
Were you still working at Staples though?
I was still working at Staples.
Okay.
Yeah, but I was drinking every single night,
which gets expensive. Yeah,
gets expensive. But the bartenders would like call me and they'd be like, "Bryan, like, like, come on down here. There's like this creepy dude, like,
because you're right upstairs.
So I'm right upstairs. So I'd be like, I'm broke. So, and they would say, well, come down. I'll sponsor you for the night.
Yeah.
And so I would basically get free drinks,
And at some point it turned into like, hey, you want to work here?
Super busy night. The single bartender's like swamped. She's like, I'm out of dishes. Like, Bryan, can you come back here and help me, like, just bar back, like wash dishes. So that's how it started. And
this is an important point. Well, not that important, but if I remember right, California's different. You don't have to have like a server's permit. You can just bartend, right?
It's recommended. So there's like it's like the ABC. It's like the alcohol beverage commission.
Right.
They do like a class that you can attend, and I think it's like a 2-year, like, I attended the ABC course.
Right.
Sort of.
But you can work without that, right?
You can work without it.
See, whereas in Oregon and Washington, you can't work as a server until you get the license.
Oh, wow.
And you have to renew it every couple years. Yeah.
Yeah, that's definitely different. I could see that being a whole different set of regulation, and more of a reason for bartenders to be responsible. Because in California, there was like a very much like...
You can drink while you're working in California. Behind the bar. You just can't get drunk.
You definitely can, but a lot of places it's really frowned upon.
Of course. But I mean, it's not against the law, whereas up here it is.
I always thought about it this way. If you really want to make a lot of money, then you drink on your shift with your patrons. Because, like, it's kind of like a lot of streamers. It's the same sort of thing. Like, I don't know. Like they're in front of you, and you want them to be...
You want to engage
on the same level. With
you want to engage with them.
Or it's like,
you want to involve them. They almost feel like they're making a better connection with their server.
Yeah,
and you're going to get tipped better.
Yeah, I think it's like a level that if the server is drinking, or if like you can buy a shot for them, then I don't know. I feel like it builds a better connection. And ends up being
better rapport.
More money for the bartender.
Yes,
honestly,
absolutely.
In tips. But
anyway, when she was getting busy, since you didn't have to go to have a license, she could just call you and say, "Can you come help me? I'm dying here."
Yeah, well, I would be maybe not 3 sheets, but like 2 sheets of the way.
But you could do dishes.
But I could do dishes, you know, and
eventually started learning how to make drinks and.
Yeah, well, her name was Leah. She was the one that really pulled me behind the bar. She was amazing. Like, Leah was incredible. She was an incredible bartender. First off, I would like to say, Mike, when he reopened the bar, he knew what he was doing.
Okay.
He had every single day of the week, he hired 6 bartenders, and he gave, like, each one of them their own day of the week, and they all, like, there was a redhead, there was, like, a brunette. There was, I'm dead serious.
That's awesome.
Had the full gamut, and then they had, like, basically the most popular bartenders work the night shifts on the weekends.
Right.
But
then you started working there, bartending. At some point, start learning how to, because there is an art there, and you have to learn how to make when somebody orders a Long Island or somebody wants a mojito, you have to know what that is.
So this is the type of place that the Castaways was. I asked that exact question because, like, there was a transition where, like, I started working there as a bar back, just washing dishes, pouring beers,
filling ice, all that shit.
Yeah, and then Laura, Laura was one of my favorite people I've ever met in my life. She's like this 5 foot tall, like, Indian girl. She had super long black hair. Okay. She was gorgeous, but she was a girl boss.
Yeah.
And
a boss bitch.
Yeah. One day she was just like, "Oh, Bryan," she's like, "I scheduled you a bartending shift on," I forget what day it was. It was like Monday or Wednesday or something.
Wasn't one of the crazy nights.
No, it was a day shift.
Thank God.
So they opened at noon, and then so it was like noon till 7:30.
Okay.
And I was like, "Laura, like, I don't know how to make drinks. Yeah. Like, what if someone comes in and asks for some, like, crazy random
how do I
drink?
make a Manhattan?"
She's like, she looked at me dead in the eye and she said, "You asked them what's in it." I was like, what if they don't know? This isn't fair. Like, what if they don't know?
Most of them do.
And she looked at me and she was like, "Then you tell them they shouldn't be drinking it." I was like, all right, I think I can do that, I guess.
I love her perspective on that.
Yeah, but that's the type of bar it is, where it's like if someone asks for, like, some fancy like blended cocktail,
yeah, somebody
they're gonna get a shot of whiskey.
Yeah,
you know?
somebody wasn't. Nobody was coming in there ordering like cosmopolitans and shit.
I mean, every once in a while there was like some people that were acting like they weren't at
Bougie.
a dive bar.
Yeah.
You know, they're like, oh yeah, let me get a Cosmo with like your well vodka. It's like, you know,
like Potter's vodka or some shit.
Yeah,
Jesus.
exactly.
But you ended up got behind the bar.
Yeah, got behind the bar, got my own shifts. I was working like 4 days a week. It was great money.
Were you still at Staples?
I was still working at Staples. So at that time at Staples, I had worked like every position in the entire place, and I was a manager.
Okay.
So I got
Jesus.
kind of.
How many? So you're putting 40 hours a week in at Staples and trying to bartend?
Yeah, but bartending was like my hobby. You know,
right.
I was like
job.
literally hanging out with the people that I was hanging out with. I was doing, you know.
Well, maybe how many shifts a week are you getting at the bar?
Like maybe 2 or 3.
Okay, so it wasn't crazy. You still had time to sleep.
Yeah. So when I actually started getting bartending shifts, that's when I called it quits at Staples.
Okay.
Because even my boss was like, I don't know, someone that drinks every day, you go into work at like 7, 8 a.m.
Yeah.
Like you kind of smell like alcohol.
Yeah.
Especially when you're like 21, 22 years old. Like you don't really care.
But
you're driving drunk to work.
Eventually, bartending became your job.
Yes.
Okay.
So yeah, I left Staples, started bartending, which wasn't the best move in hindsight.
No.
Like a lot of the money is like just straight cash, which is nothing wrong with that. You know, if you make all your money in cash, that's good. But I just know that I'm not responsible enough with money to be able to manage it that well.
Right.
Especially when I'm working in an industry where it's very social, and I'm also meeting a lot of other, like Santa Cruz is small. Like a lot of the patrons were like work in the industry.
Yeah.
So they might tip you a bunch, but like you go out and
then you go to their bar,
and yeah, you put down triple the amount to you spread out 3 times the amount. Yeah. So I was always broke, but
you were living the server's lifestyle.
Yeah, but like drinks at my bar, if you work there, you're half off your tab.
Oh Jesus, that's dangerous. Dangerous.
Yeah, so I would basically just hang out, like I would work like a day shift, make my tips, and then just spend like 3/4 of it at the bar that night. So it wasn't a very good lifestyle. It wasn't very healthy. I started going back to school after that. I started going back to, there's a junior college in Aptos. It's called Cabrillo College. It's an amazing place.
Were you just going to school just to get like your general credits?
I wanted to get my associates.
And something specific, or just get the associates?
I didn't know what I wanted to do. I've never known. Honestly, all I've ever wanted to do was play video games. Like ever since I was a little kid.
So if you can find a way to make money at that.
Yeah, which I thought of, but every time, during that time, it was like, oh, what do you want to do? Oh, you should be a video game tester. But that is like being like, oh, you like video games? Then you should program video games. It's like, no, programming and testing video games is like pulling teeth. It's not a fun thing to do.
Right.
You're banging your head against the wall, basically.
Yeah.
In my opinion. Opinion.
That's how it would
some
feel.
People love it.
That's how it would feel for you.
Yeah. Yes. It just wouldn't work for me. What was
so
I saying,
we're still bartending. You're starting to take some classes, living in the place above the bar.
Yeah.
And I mean, what's the next major life event? Do you go at some point? Is that how you get into Costco, or something happened between?
No, something happened between. So I stopped bartending. Started going to school. I got like a few years into school. I got actually really into mathematics.
Okay.
And kind of saw if I wanted to get a math degree that I would end up having to be like a teacher or
statistician. I don't know.
yeah, something. I mean, not the direction that I would really thought that I wanted.
A slit your wrist career.
Yeah, slit my wrist career basically. But I did really like math at the time. I started doing my homework, and I always hated math when I was younger. But when I started doing my homework and actually worked at it, I was like, hey, this is actually, I'm kind of good at this.
That's kind of cool, yeah.
Yeah, and so I got kind of stalled out at my associate's degree, where I didn't want to commit. At Cabrillo College, they say if you get your associates, then you get a guaranteed spot into into UC Santa Cruz.
Oh, okay. The state university.
Yeah, it's a direct transfer sort of thing. So I got to the point where I just dragged my feet. I think I was afraid of moving on from what I was comfortable with.
Yeah.
And I drug my feet and then didn't. I just didn't complete my degree.
But you're no longer bartending?
So I was bartending during that time.
Okay.
And then when I stopped going to school because of money, work got in the way. I always sacrificed school for work.
Right.
So I ended up going back to I went to Orchard Supply. So I had a friend that went to the bar all the time. She was like, "Oh, I could get you a job at Orchard Supply." So I worked at Orchard Supply, which was an awful job. It was a terrible job. And I was at front end, I basically worked the returns counter and managed all the registers.
Is it Orchard Supply? Is that like a Lowe's or a Home Depot kind of thing?
Kind of like a low scale. They do have Orchard Supply up here, but
I feel like I've heard the name.
They're like it's a hardware store that sells plants.
Oh, got it. Okay,
basically.
Got it.
I mean,
hence the name Orchard Supply.
Yeah, the long and the short of it, that's it.
Okay.
Mika. A little wary. So I got a job there, and it was awful. I was still going to the bar all the time. I actually got fired from the bar. This is what happened. I got fired from the bar.
Oh, this is gonna be a good story. Let me grab a beer.
Yeah, go ahead.
You keep telling it. I can hear it.
So I got fired from the bar because, so I was the only male that worked there, ever. And even people would be like, "Oh." Yeah, it was all females, and then they basically talked him into hiring me. And then I started getting more shifts, but I don't think that he liked me at all.
Really?
Yeah.
Why?
Well, he was very much I don't know. I really don't know. I have my suspicions, but a lot of those suspicions make me sound conceited, so I don't like. I don't
no,
like
you're fine.
You
don't have to share them.
But I just don't think he liked me at all. And he was like, "Oh, he was like, he accused me of leaving the bar, and not manning it, and being out and hanging out. Basically, there was a tattoo shop right next door." With other guys that
he was accusing you of when the bar is open and you're the bartender, you would just disappear for a half an hour.
And then he said that he had called the bar and I didn't respond. And you can look at the cameras and see through it live. And so he didn't tell me this. He had Laura do it, but she was the manager, which I mean makes kind of sense. But so she had to fire me, and then I was like, "Well, can I see?" the time where
I wasn't there,
and they said no, you can't see it.
That's suspicious.
Yeah, really suspicious. And then so I'm like, okay, well, I don't know what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna file for unemployment. I filed for unemployment and they denied me
because you were fired. So you
and
have
they
to
were
fight
like,
it.
yeah, this is you're denied because of this reason. It was like negligence or job abandonment or something like that. And I'm like, well, this isn't true.
Yeah. And he won't show me the footage.
Yeah, he won't show me the footage. So I appealed it. And so the appeal, for at least in California, you have to go in front of a judge.
Oh, okay.
And so you go in front of a judge with the other party, and you both say your case, and then the judge rules on it. So I didn't know what to expect, but I went in, and it was basically just like an office with a long table, and the judge was there. And I literally said nothing. I said two things. He was like, he looked at me and was like, is this what you got fired for? And I was like, yeah. And he's like, did you do this? And I said, no. And Mike, the owner, the one that they talked to and that accused me of everything, wasn't even there. He was on vacation. So he sent Laura in to do it. And I felt so bad. The judge spent 30 minutes reaming her out, telling her you can't just fire people for no reason.
And it wasn't Laura's call.
And then deny him unemployment.
Yeah.
And I felt so bad for her because he was like, so is this a statement that you made? And she's like, no, that's the owner. And he's like, well, why isn't he here?
Yeah. And it wasn't Laura's call in the first place.
Yeah, it wasn't her call. And she was like still my friend at that point, you know.
That sucks.
And that definitely really sucked. But I got unemployment.
He improved it, and then
I got back pay for like 6 months.
And then now you're trying to decide what your next step is?
Yeah.
Which is that how you got to Costco?
That was the end of the bar. That's how I got fired from the bar.
Okay.
Started working at Orchard Supply. Hated it. Went back to Staples because one of my old subordinates was a manager there at that point. And then I had him get me a job. And then I just got after 6 months, they were like, "Oh, Bryan, you still know how to do everything here. Mm-hmm. You should take this management position." So I got basically slotted in for a management position there after 6 months.
Okay.
And then after maybe 6 more months, our store got reevaluated by the corporate office. We weren't making sales, basically.
Okay.
And so they cut a bunch of our staff. One of those cuts was my position, my management position. So they gave me a severance pay for a month and a half or something like that.
Right.
Nothing.
Nothing.
It was either that severance, I could go on unemployment, or I could take a step down as a regular employee. So I was like, I know how to work, do everything here. I may as well just take a step down. I don't have another job lined up, and that's when I applied for Costco.
Okay.
And I got the job at Costco right away.
Is it in Santa Cruz?
Yeah, this was in Santa Cruz.
There was a Costco there. Okay.
Yeah.
Costco
in Santa Cruz.
Where did you? I'm assuming just like everybody. Did you start out seasonal and all that shit? Or?
No, I got hired after the season. So I got hired. I was the first hiring after. It's what I usually call they weed out all the bad employees that are seasonals, and then they rehire a new group and then keep the best of both those two crews.
Right.
So I was part of that second crew that was hired in February, and I was like, this is going to be my career.
Where'd you start at? What department?
Front end. I was an assistant.
Okay.
Front end assistant. I tried to branch out as much as possible. Tried to cross-train in as many different places. So after the first year, I cross-trained in the tire shop. That first seasonal one I had, I went straight to the tire shop. Then back to front end for a year, and then I did another seasonal in the tire shop. And then after that season, they were like, "Hey, Bryan, you're really good. Why don't you take this position that's open as an installer?"
Full-time installer?
Part-time.
Oh, but dedicated to the tire shop.
Yeah. This time in my life, coming from bartending and way more of a party lifestyle, I'm like, humans aren't meant to work 40 hours a week. I'm going to work just hard enough to get by. I'm going to live my best life.
Yes.
I quickly started realizing that you don't need to have a lot of money to have a good life.
Right.
Basically, if you have the right job.
Yes.
And time for me is the greatest resource. It's the most valuable. Exactly, more than literally anything else. So if someone wants to buy my time, they got to kind of pay for a lot. Yeah. That's kind of where that thinking started, was during that time in my life. But money can buy your time. That being said, money can buy your time. And after 6 months of being a part-time installer, I became a full-time installer, and then a backup supervisor spot opened, and I got that spot. Got right in. And that was, I was at Costco less than 2 years at that point.
Okay.
So I started at $11.50, and after a year and a half, I got bumped up to, top of the scale, plus $1.
Back then was, I don't know, 25. What was it?
It was, I think I was getting 26 as a suit.
Okay, nice.
This
is
good
money.
It was over double what I was making. So,
and you're not still in the apartment above the bar?
No. No, I moved around a little bit. At this point, I was living a little bit deeper into the midtown of Santa Cruz, right next to the boardwalk, Santa Cruz Beach Boardwalk. But there's this area around the boardwalk called the Flats. Mm-hmm. The Flats is not a good place to live. I'm up the hill from the Flats.
Okay.
I'm just outside the Flats, where it's a nicer area. It's a place called Seabright.
Okay.
But you can basically walk down the road and like see the boardwalk with all the like roller coasters and stuff like that.
Right.
So I was living in a house there where I was paying a tiny little room.
You were just renting a room.
Oh yeah, renting
roommates.
a room with roommates.
Okay.
With housemates.
Were you into the surf culture? You do the surf thing? Or?
Not really. So I tried surfing a couple times and I ended up hitting the person that was teaching me how to surf, and after that I was like, I'm done. I'm too embarrassed. I'm the kind of person that I like doing things that I'm good at, and if I'm not good at something, I'll practice it by myself until I am good at it.
Right, before anybody sees you perform it.
And then I'll go out and do it. I don't know why. It's not even like a sense of embarrassment that I have. It's just like I like to do a good job.
Yeah.
And I like to keep, I don't know, maybe it's not such a good outlook, but I like to keep my failures to myself, I guess, a little bit.
I think that's pretty common.
Yeah. I think it's very common. I don't know if it's super healthy or not, but now that I think about it, but
yeah, because what's the friggin' Batman thing? In Batman Begins, the famous where he falls in the well and he's like, Bruce, why did we fall?
Yeah, why do we fall?
So we can pick ourselves back up. So yeah, failure is supposed to be an opportunity to learn.
Absolutely.
But nobody wants to advertise it.
Yeah, no one likes advertising.
I think that's normal.
Yeah.
So Costco end up becoming full time.
Yeah.
Now is it at that point? Is that like I'm making the most money I've ever made?
Absolutely.
Good benefits.
As a manager at Staples, so this was like. So I was like one rung from the top, you know, from I was an assistant manager there. I was a sales manager.
So you were one rung from being like the store manager type thing? Okay.
Yeah, I was an assistant manager.
And not making as much as you were at Costco, I'm guessing?
I was making $17 an hour.
Oh, shit. Okay.
Yeah. Which, like, kind of like what I was saying earlier about perspectives, like perspectives about like being inside, you know, a situation, and from the perspective of being outside and looking at the situation.
Right.
Like working at Staples for so long, I was like, this is just how much, like, this is a good wage. I was like,
you were too close to it.
I had no idea
of the possibilities.
That something better was out there. I compared everything to that and was like, this is the same everywhere. Orchard Supply paid shit.
Yeah.
Staples paid shit.
Yeah.
You know, especially for the amount of responsibility that they were, you know, that we had.
Yeah.
Like, at this point, it kind of boggles my mind. But, yeah, I had, when I first started at Costco, I thought, like, I should have started here when I was 18.
I have that thought every day.
Yeah. I would, like, if I had started there when I was 18 and started, like, buying stock the way that I have been since I started, like,
oh, dude,
like I would be like halfway to retirement.
I know. I punch myself in the face because I started at Costco when I was 45, and I'm like, if I would have started in my 20s, I'd already have $1 million in my 401k.
Yeah.
This is what the fuck was I doing? Wasting 15 years as a gosh damn DJ.
Yeah.
But anyway.
But there's that idea of, you know, you're having fun, though.
I had some amazing experiences.
Yeah.
Met some great people that I'm still close to. And maybe it was just part of life's learning process that I had to go through some shit to get to where I am now.
Yeah.
You know. But so you end up full-time at Costco, backup soup. And at some point, you did manage a short stint managing the tire shop.
Yeah, so that came a little bit later. So I was backup soup in the tire shop, and I was, you know, coming from Staples, already, you know, became manager super quick. I was like in that kind of mindset of like, I want to do the best. I don't know. Like, I want to do the best that I can, and not just that. Like, I want to get to the top. Like, I had a very, not that I'm saying I don't now, but I had a very high, like, I valued myself very highly. I knew what I was capable of, and I know what I'm capable of.
Right.
But during that time, I think that the application of that was far greater than it is now. Like, I really tried to work my way up to the top.
Oh,
and
you had a stronger motivation.
I was completely motivated.
Okay.
To get up there and to become a manager at Costco.
Okay.
And I worked extremely hard, no matter what shift. I was working overtime too. I was working 48 hours a week.
Did this have anything to do with what was going on? Like, we haven't touched on your personal life at the time. If you were in a relationship, did it have anything to do with that? Like, I want to achieve management because I'm dating this girl that I might want to marry, or nothing?
No.
Okay, so it was just work related.
No, honestly, I'll tell you the truth.
And you don't even have to get into that if you don't want to.
My personal life, after Jamie, that was my. So there's been a few big relationships. Like,
and again, you don't have to share if you don't
want
to.
No. Okay. It's like totally not a sensitive issue at all for me. There's been a lot of, like, I've had a lot of relationships that I wouldn't really call relationships.
Okay.
You know, that a lot of short-term 1 to 3 month relationships.
Right.
So there was the first one that got me kicked out.
Oh,
that was as far as big ones.
Oh,
the
right,
ones
when you were 15, yes.
Yeah, there was that one. Then there was Jamie.
Jamie, yeah, which caused problems.
Yeah, which had its own set of drama, but I think that I don't know. I got to do some self-reflecting about that because it's kind of a common occurrence that comes up with my relationships.
Oh, okay.
But at this point, throughout the entire bartending time, I was pretty promiscuous, you know.
Right. Well,
I
that's
was
that
like,
world. That's
I was
that
very
world.
much of a, like, zero ties.
Right.
Like,
yeah, I know.
You want to go out? That's great.
Lots
like,
of hookups.
Let's have a great time
let's
for
hang
the
out,
night,
be
but
friends.
let's don't, if you don't
We're not
like
gonna put a
things
label
my
on
way,
it.
then you can go
We're
on
not
your
going to put
way.
a label on it. We're not. Yeah.
Yeah, like no issues,
Right.
ending things like immediately. You know,
Right.
that sort of thing.
I totally get it.
I had a lot of those during that time, and I really didn't. I don't know. I didn't really have to work hard to get attention from.
Because you're a
women.
good-looking, in-shape guy. So no, come on.
Yeah,
No,
well,
I can say it. You can't say it because then
I can't say it because
that would sound arrogant. But I can say it. And you're well-spoken. You're smart. You have a good personality. So of course, you were beating him off with a stick. Yes.
I had a lot of attention while I was younger, which kind of I think like in the long run had a negative effect on my outlook on relationships.
Right.
But
did it almost make you not hard to trust? Like, is this real? You know what I mean? Because like you're used to.
I think more recently I've kind of had that reaction. I think during that time, I had no. I don't know. There's like, there's this thing that sort of infatuation that happens. Between people when like they first meet, that sort of like honeymoon phase.
Oh yeah, because it's so intense at the beginning.
Yeah, I started. Well, I don't know. It's weird for me to talk about because I don't know if it's entirely normal. But I stopped like really appreciating like new interactions with people. I guess if that sounds weird, like
you stopped appreciating.
Yeah, it got very samey.
Oh,
very like okay.
The same thing again.
Yeah,
repetitive.
Very repetitive.
So you stopped enjoying the experience of meeting somebody new.
Yeah,
is that kind of what you're saying?
A little bit.
Okay.
I guess.
Or you were always on guard because you'd been through this so many times.
I think a little bit on guard because I think that I always knew that other people had kind of ulterior motives or a lot of like. People always talk, or I find this argument so much with, like, being said by women, where they're always like, oh, men only want one thing.
Right.
You know, all that sort of thing. But I've had experiences that have been completely opposite, where, like, I've been sexually assaulted by women.
Right.
You know.
Okay. It's a real thing. That
It's
happens.
a very, very real thing. And I think that it hardens you a little bit, like in the same way it happens to some women. You know, they just, I don't know. I'm talking from my perspective. Is I've just noticed that I don't see that the beginning stages of a relationship as very authentic.
Because everybody's putting their best foot forward.
Putting
so
their
is
best
this
foot
who you
forward,
really are?
And also, a lot of people get drunk on their own emotions.
That's an interesting phrase.
And that
drunk on their own emotions.
Yeah. And
explain that.
And that.
I like that. I think I know what it means.
So the idea I have behind that is that like people always look back, like say you're in a train wreck relationship,
right?
And you look back and you think like, oh man, why didn't I see these signs earlier when they first appeared, like after month 1?
Oh,
it's like because you blinded yourself with your own, like
you missed the red flags.
Yeah, it's like, you put them on a pedestal. You made them into something that they aren't really.
Okay. Yeah.
And then you discover who they really are, and then you realize that, oh my God,
that's not going to work.
This
for
is
me.
a nightmare. Yeah, and it's like it's like people trick themselves.
Drunk on your own emotions. Yeah. I've never heard that phrase, but that sums it up.
And what do you do when you're drunk? You usually make bad decisions.
Yes, because your judgment is impaired.
Yeah. Exactly.
Jesus. Yeah. Oh my gosh. So okay, working at Costco, you're like, I'm gonna do this, man. You had that drive to optimize your Costco career. I want to become a manager, and you did do a stint as a tire shop manager.
Yeah. So, but first, I was like, I wanted a full time. I knew I had to get a full time supervisor.
Oh, supervisor. Oh, so you went that first.
Yeah. So I was a full-time installer, backup supervisor, and I wanted to be a full-time supervisor because I was like, the money is too good.
Yeah, of course.
I was going up. I was working like maybe 15 to 20 hours a week souping.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was like, this money is too good.
Yeah.
I want more of it. So I went to the front end. I applied for a front end spot, and I got it.
A front end soup?
Soup.
Okay.
Yeah, front end soup.
Red vest, right?
Didn't have no red vests at that point.
Oh, they didn't?
No,
okay,
didn't have any red vests. But they, at this time, like at my Costco, there was no SIT.
That wasn't a thing.
No, you just get pushed right into the deep end.
Oh.
And they say, here's your register number. This is what you give numbers for.
Wow.
Here's the board. This is how you work it.
Holy shit! They just throw you in the lake.
Good luck.
And swim.
Oh yeah. And you either sink or swim.
Yeah.
So I did that, and this was they hired the supervisor spot right before the holiday season.
Oh shit!
So I worked. So I
became
like,
a new front end soup around Thanksgiving. Are you freaking kidding me?
Yeah, insane. Like I said, sink or swim. While they're handing you like rocks before they push you off the dock. Yeah. So I managed fine. I mean, I think I might have seemed a little neurotic and stressed out during the time.
I'm sure you were.
But I worked as a front end soup for like a year and a half.
Okay.
So a year and a half goes by. During that time, we got a bunch of new hires. One of them is Teresa.
Yeah.
My ex.
Yeah.
And yeah, so at this time I was like, how old was I? I was like 33, 34. I started at Costco when I was 30. So I'd worked as a front end soup for maybe a year and a half, maybe 2 years. Met Teresa. She was a assistant.
She just got hired seasonally, I'm assuming. And then they kept her eventually.
Yeah, kept her, and she would flirt with me all the time. Like we basically had like this secret relationship.
Right.
That was incredibly obvious. Like looking back, like we went to an employee party together.
Right.
Like to basically
when
together,
they used to do that, yeah.
Which is an incredibly funny story. So we go to this employee party and we're all dressed up, and it was like
they usually had a theme for it.
Yeah, the theme was like the Roaring '20s.
Yes.
Like
yes.
So everyone's all dressed up to the nines, and like suit and tie, like all the girls like low cut like dresses, like big pearls, and Teresa goes there and like she's got an amazing body, and she had like super low cut dress.
So you guys didn't go together. You just
we went together.
Oh, you did go together.
Oh, we went together.
Okay.
Yeah, we went together. Spent the whole time drinking. Like afterwards, like leaving. Even the manager like walked over and was like, he's like, Bryan, he's like, you got to take care of her tonight. And I was like, yes, sir. Yes. Whatever you say. And so we get together. Teresa was my other, like, one of 3 of my really big, like, relationships of people that, when I say really big relationships, I mean people that I had potential for marriage.
Right.
And so yeah, that was a really no situation. Later, eventually, like, I get pulled into the office by my manager, the front end manager, and one of the AGMs, and they're like, Bryan, someone saw you holding hands and kissing Teresa.
Right.
Basically,
that's a no-no.
Yeah, well, I walked in there, and this seems to happen all the time to me, where, like, I go in and I don't really say very much, and then they kind of lead the answer. Like, I'll look at them, and then they'll be like, I'll be like, yeah, we were there, and then they would lead in, oh, but it wasn't very serious, right? I'd be like, yeah, but it's not very serious. They're like, oh, okay, so it's not very serious. That's okay. As long as you be careful and that it's not very serious. And it's like, I never actually said that. You kind of put those words in my mouth.
Right.
So that got glossed over.
Well, it kind of sounds like they're trying to give you an out.
I think that's exactly
they're trying to help you.
I think that's exactly the case. But I was definitely breaking the rules. So I was like, they're hot on my tail. At that point.
This leads you back to the tire shop. You have to get out of the department.
Puts me back into the tire shop, exactly. They had an opening for, I forget exactly what reason. I go back in there and make it known, my relationship with Teresa, tell everyone,
Did you go back as a installer or a soup?
Soup.
Okay, cool.
I went in as a soup. Full-time soup. And a lot of the people at my old warehouse, like, they're very old employees. Like, they've been there a long time.
Okay.
And none of them wanted to move up. They like, imagine, like, everyone in the tire shop has worked as a supervisor.
Yeah.
And then all of them conveniently forgot how to be a supervisor, like, 3 months after they left the position. So they've all worked it. They all know what to do, but they're all like, we leave
now
the job to them.
They just want to cruise. They're
they
comfortable.
Exactly.
They're only making $1.50 or $1.75 less than you.
At that time, it was like $1.
Yeah. So it's like there's no reason for them to want to deal with the headache of being a super manager.
Exactly.
And they're just padding their 401k.
Yeah. So at that time, my manager, he had a bunch of vacations saved up. He also, his wife was pregnant.
Okay.
So he left and he took like 3 months vacation and then 3 months baby leave off.
So he was gone for 6 months.
For 6 months.
Okay.
Yeah, and then that's when I took over.
You managed it. What was that like? Because I have an insight from Matt's perspective.
Way easier.
But I don't know the stress that he has. There's stuff he has to deal with that I don't know about as a soup.
So as a supervisor, my main duty was, like, my manager just said, okay, you deal with all of the...
It's the day-to-day stuff.
Well, not the day-to-day. He was like, you're, like, you know how Justin was, like, the auto program guy.
Oh, right. Or somebody would do the schedule. Somebody does inventory.
Exactly. My duty was to take care of all the claims.
Oh.
Which we would get maybe, like, 1 to 2 a week.
Really?
Of broken center caps, broken hubcaps.
Is that unique to that Costco? Because we don't get that many claims.
Oh,
okay.
Like my old building is like 30 to 40% busier.
Okay.
Than ours, and I don't know. People are idiots.
But you were dealing with a lot of that stuff.
Yeah. Employees were very rough with vehicles too.
Okay.
There was things like one instance where, like, oh, they set the wheel lock key on the windshield with the thing, and then it rolled off and fell into this F-150's like a hole in the
by where the windshield
the windshield and the hood
yeah, right
falls into the hood, and it's like a pachinko machine where it goes freaking all the way down into the
you can't get it.
You can't get it. It's in the wheel well.
Holy shit.
And so we had to pay for, like, a mechanic to take the wheel well off.
Yes.
Just to get
the wheel lock. Or just buy a new wheel locky. But then they don't want that in there rattling around.
No, they were like, we don't want it in there.
We don't want this rattling around.
Yeah, they didn't want it in there.
Oh
so
my God.
I would get tons of them and like ordering on eBay.
But it happened enough that he needed a supervisor to address that.
To take care of it.
Okay.
Yeah. Like, I was on the phone. I forget their names now because it's been years.
Well, don't say their names.
Yeah. But it's our like claim, like Costco has like a claims company that is like a third party that's like the neutral.
They're supposed to be independent, so they can make an objective decision.
And say like, okay, you should pay this out or you shouldn't. You know, if this went to court, like, you would win or basically
right
that sort of thing. So I would be on the phone with them like once a week and like sending them tape.
Oh my God.
My manager was like anything over $100 though, write a claim for.
Okay.
So I was on the phone with them a lot, and I think because of that being more of like dealing with member issues directly kind of gave me a shoe-in to be the best person to become the manager while he was gone.
Okay.
Because I've already dealt with the worst possible instances of, I've already dealt with people, like their cars being backed out with the door open and their door
that did not happen.
Off.
Don't tell me that happened.
So this instance was the employee was backing out a vehicle, and there was the bay next to them. They were basically in like the second bay, and then bay 1 was wide open, like there's no chain up, and a member started pulling into the bay next to them. And so they saw it, they looked over their shoulder and they saw it, and then what they did is it was an electric vehicle, so it didn't sound like it was on, but they were in reverse.
Oh, crap.
They stood up out of the seat and got out of the vehicle and was telling the member to back out.
And the vehicle kept going back.
And then after like maybe 1 second, you know how the electric motor will kick in?
Right.
It started backing up on him.
Oh,
like
Jesus.
idling backwards.
And the door was open.
The door was wide
so
open.
So it caught the entrance to the bay.
So he jumped.
And just folded it.
He like dove, like did a swan dive straight back into the car and then couldn't hit the brake till it was already out of the bay.
The door was like the wrong way.
And it was like a brand new, it was like a brand new Subaru Outback.
Oh, Jesus.
Yeah.
It was like the scene from Tommy Boy at the gas station.
It was awful. It was awful. It was so terrible.
Dude. All right, so going back to when you took a 6-month stint managing the tire shop, how was that different from being a soup then?
It was so much better.
Why?
It was so much better.
It seems like Matt's stressed out all the time. Why was it better?
It is. I think there's a difference between how our warehouse deals with member issues and other warehouses. Like my old warehouse was like the manager, like the GM, AGMs, they were like, we do not want to hear about member issues.
Oh.
Deal with it. They
would let you handle it at your level.
This is your job. Don't tell us unless we need to know.
Unless we really need to know.
Yeah. So there were things like, because we would call them out sometimes being like, hey, there's this issue with this member where we can't do the service, or they did something wrong where we can't offer them a warranty. And they were like, they'd just be like, we don't understand any of this. You are the expert.
You have the expertise.
Yeah, you're the expert.
You make the decision.
You make the decision.
Okay.
So they were like, we don't want to hear about it. Don't send them in here. Deal with it yourself. Like, make a deal with them. Like, if there's like a warranty issue for a mileage sort of thing,
right?
We give you the authority to like warranty like 1 or 2 tires if you want. If you think that they'll be better off, like if they'll be more amicable about buying 4 if you help them out on 2.
Yeah, it's
instead
like
of all
take
4,
care of the member. Don't bother us unless it's really a big deal.
Exactly. Like they gave me way more leniency. Like, they gave me the keys to the whole building, too.
But as a manager for the tire shop, doesn't the manager, I mean, all department managers do, don't you have, like, weekly meetings with the GM? Mm-hmm. And are there any, as a department manager, do you just have to do weekly meetings with the GM, or are you ever on, like, the conference calls with corporate?
So there was 2 instances where I did a corporate call with corporate, and that was because it was right when I was manager for 1 month when we started the appointment program.
Oh.
Yeah.
So the appointment program is semi-new?
Oh, yeah.
See, because I started at Costco in 2017. So what year are we talking about when the appointment program?
This must be right about that time. Or maybe a little bit after that. We had appointments, but they weren't pushed at all. Like, we could go in there, but we would have like maybe 2 appointments a day or something like that.
The actual like software for the appointments didn't exist?
Not the one that we used, not the wait while.
No, the one before that.
The previous one.
So that was there when I started.
New.
That was new.
That's new. That started when I was a manager. And
what year?
I still have text messages from one of my supervisors at the point, Douglas, where he was messaged me like it was actually really encouraging as a manager. He was like, "Oh man, I feel really good about this appointment program. I think it'll give us a really good opportunity to help more people."
Right.
And that's one reason why I remember it always is because he sent me that message, and I was like, "Dude, I totally agree. This is gonna make our jobs so much easier."
And back when I first started, I don't know if it was like this at your store, but appointments didn't start until noon. And the first 2 hours between 10 and noon was all walk-ins only.
Dude, my old building is different. Like our Santa Cruz, so our warehouse was built. It wasn't built as a Costco initially.
Oh.
It was built as something else and then turned into a Costco.
Okay.
So our parking lot there was much smaller. So what the corporate office said is that, if you are limited on parking, you can extend your hours.
Oh.
So the tire shop was open till 7 p.m. till 8:30 p.m.
Wait. Opened at 7 a.m.
7 a.m. Yeah. Did I say p.m.?
Yeah, you said it. But 7 a.m. till 8:30.
Yeah, we'd be open at 7 a.m.
Okay.
And we wouldn't schedule appointments, but we would tell people we were open for walk-in service.
Right.
Because at that warehouse, we would get a line every single day of 20 people before the doors are open.
Wow.
Yeah.
Jesus.
So we would line up with 15 to 20 cars right when we would open.
So where we put all the boards, you'd have 15 to 20 every morning.
Yeah, every morning,
right
every
at
single
7.
morning. We would have one salesman and usually either the supervisor or the installer up front. The only other person, so it would be 2 people at sales and then 1 person working. The person working would basically load up all 4 bays, disassemble all 4 bays, and then wait for the next person to come in. As a supervisor, I wouldn't get the next soup wouldn't come in until 11.
Jesus.
Yeah, so I would get there at 6:30, work till 11:30.
With no break.
With no break, and then sometimes I would go after my lunch even. And then when they would be like, "Hey, why'd you go over your lunch?" Because in California, you get 1 extra hour of pay if you go over your 5 hours.
So it's a big deal.
It's a big deal.
Yeah.
And so they'd be like, "Why did this happen?" And you would tell them "Look, my relief got here at my 4-hour mark, and we were so busy I couldn't do anything." They'd be like, "Well, you need to manage your time better."
Did people, the members using that Costco, that they just kind of understood that, hey, I'm just going to have to drop my car off?
That's exactly
it. I'll show up at 7 and drop it off, but they weren't waiting for it.
Yeah,
they're
not. Yeah, they leave. Yeah, they leave. They drop it off and they leave it all day.
Nice. Okay.
And it's because we didn't have the appointment. We didn't use an appointment program for a long time. So people were like, "Oh, if you want to get your vehicle serviced, you have to be there at opening."
Just so we can promise we'll get it done on the same day.
Yeah.
Wow.
And that's why that warehouse could limit big vehicles. We wouldn't work on F-350s. We wouldn't work on Sprinters.
No Sprinters or dualies.
No, because they would take an hour and a half to do.
Yeah.
When we could sell 8 tires and put them on in that time.
Yes. For 2 cars. Yes.
Yeah.
So 6-month stint managing, and you were with Teresa at this time. She was still on front end. Yep. And then when
she moved in with me after a month and a half.
And then when your manager came back from his baby leave, you just went back to soup?
Yep, just went back to soup.
Okay, and then just you and Teresa living together, you're a soup at Costco, and does this lead into the pandemic?
Yeah, that leads into the pandemic. My manager came to me and was like, "Hey, I'm stuck in the tire shop. I can't get out." He didn't see any plus side of being. He didn't see any way to where he could rise any further.
Okay.
Without him, like really shoving elbows. There's this thing with tire shop managers where there's a certain expertise that's required that other people can't just fill.
Oh, right. So, yeah, you can't just grab anybody from the warehouse.
Especially in a place like my old Costco, where I was saying, where the entire department is filled with people who do not want to move up.
Oh.
Who are they're already topped out. And this was back in before they raised the manager's wage. Back then, management, when I was manager, I was making a yearly, it was $10,000 more a year.
It wasn't that much more.
It wasn't much more at all.
Yeah, not a lot of incentive.
And then they were making me work 8. They were making me work 9-10 hour days.
Right.
Which was the only biggest turnoff for me. So I had this coming into Costco, I had this huge I want to get to the top.
Yeah, you had motivation.
I was I don't even want to be a warehouse manager. I want to go to corporate. I want to go as high as I know that I'm capable of doing if I apply myself. And that experience of being manager completely destroyed that.
It changed your perspective on it.
Completely back to what I used to be, where I'm my time is worth more than what any company is willing to pay me. I think about that now, and I think about where I'm at in this moment, and I'm I am so comfortable right now that I don't have to work 40 hours a week to get by. I have a much larger place than I need. I can pretty much buy whatever food, necessities that I want without any sort of worry.
Right.
I think what else do I really want?
All your needs are met. Really you have a 401k, you have a retirement, you have medical benefits, and you're comfortable. You can buy you can go on vacation when you want. You can travel. And now I'm gonna grab that seltzer, but maybe this is where I would love to hear about how your parents ended up moving up here after you moved.
Oh, okay. So they actually
That's a great story, I think.
Not
great, but I'm interested in it.
Yeah, after all their money problems that they had with the government, they ended up moving into apartments. Still in Santa Cruz, but in very nice apartments, 3-bedroom, 3-bath apartments, pretty much condos, but my dad still had connections from from his
I'll have this unless you wanted it.
Go for it. Go for it. Yeah, I'm up for anything. I don't really care.
So let's just talk. Well, okay, maybe we should get back on mic.
I know. My storytelling's a little bit convoluted.
No, it's just perfect. Get a little closer. You're still doing good, but let's maybe touch base on you and Teresa are together. The pandemic hits, and that's at some point for whatever reason is when you decided to transition or transfer up here.
Yeah, well, so Teresa, she was from Bend.
Oh, I guess I didn't know that.
So, La Pine.
Yeah, I lived in Bend for 3 years.
Yeah, so La Pine, just south of Bend.
So I know exactly where it's at.
That's where she's from. She lived her whole life there.
Oh, wow.
I think she was born in Marina, California, which is right on the Monterey Bay, a little bit right near Santa Cruz, just south, just before Monterey. But her family moved up to Bend when she was 4 or 5 years old.
Okay.
And so they lived in La Pine, and she absolutely hated it there.
As a teenager, it's a small.
She's a big city girl too. She always wanted to live in the big city. So that that was just her. She moved down to Santa Cruz for her just to get away from an ex-boyfriend.
Okay.
basically.
Got a job at Costco. And
got a job at Costco, moved in with her aunt, met me, spent a few years with me. And then she was like, well, because I didn't like, we were living together. I didn't like living together, sharing a house with 3 other housemates.
Oh, you were living with her, but you still had roommates.
I was still in that same place. I kind of moved into a few different rooms. I lived there for almost 5-6 years.
Okay.
And I was the only, I don't know how the lease worked. I signed a lease when I first moved in, but I never signed a lease after that.
Okay.
And people moved out and new people moved in. And I don't know if they signed individual leases or something like that, but
they must have.
I never even paid a deposit for that place. Like that place, that house ended up getting red tagged
for structural problems,
for illegal construction that they were doing on the house.
Geez.
So at one point they were like, "Oh, we're putting in a new bathroom." And they put in a new bathroom, but they were like, "Hey, tell your neighbors it's a bike shed."
They weren't getting the permits.
Yeah, and the back deck was like falling apart, and so they wanted to redo it. And when we pushed them to kind of like put in a new deck, they had to get the city to approve it.
Okay.
And I think that's what set off the red tag.
Oh,
and so they said
it.
Any construction work,
it opened up a can of worms.
A huge can of worms. So we were in that house together with 3 other housemates.
Okay.
And I was like, I'm done. I'm 30, at this point I was like, 35, 36.
Okay.
I'm like, I do not want to live with housemates anymore.
Right. I'm beyond that.
Yeah, I'm beyond that. My parents had moved up here. They found.
Oh, they moved up before you.
They moved up before me. They found an incredible deal up in Yakult. They paid like $95,000 for their property.
Yeah,
it's like a 5-acre lot.
No, I think on the way to a lake up there, I think I drove. I don't know which house was theirs, but I know the highway. It's it's beautiful up there. It's
an incredible place, and they got that very cheap. It was like before COVID, so before the big housing boom.
Wasn't this like 2018 or 20?
I think right around then.
Okay.
Yeah, right around then. But it was my dad. It was like one of my dad's old business, like someone that he trained to install like his device.
Oh,
whatever.
So he had a connection to the people that were selling it.
It was his parents. His dad got Alzheimer's.
Okay.
And they had a lot of different properties, and so they were consolidating a bunch of them.
Okay.
Trying to pool their money so that they could have like a more end of life.
Better care for him, to be able to pay for the care for
exactly.
his dad. Yeah.
Exactly. So, so my parents were like, "Oh, we're moving up there," and this is where in Battleground is actually where my dad's old business, like everyone who he worked with at the company that bought his, started their own business and moved it to Battleground right there.
Seriously?
Yeah.
What are the odds of that? It's like it comes full circle.
A little bit. It's kind of I mean, it definitely makes you think how important like business relationships can be, or at least like mutual,
just making connections,
beneficial relationships. Yeah. In the far long term, I mean, you can rely on those throughout your entire life, as long as that benefit remains, I guess.
Right.
But yeah, so they moved up there. He still started doing like small work for them, like kind of side stuff.
Okay.
I think just utilizing his kind of expertise, but
right. But you're still in Santa Cruz, and so they're already up here. And then when the pandemic hits, at some point, was that the seed? The fact that they were up here is what planted the seed for your.
They moved up here. My ex's family is kind of nearby.
Oregon, yeah.
I was sick of paying so much rent.
Yeah.
My parents were reaching that time in their life where I could tell, age was getting to them.
So it might be good to have you around.
Get me close. I mean, they had no one else around. Like there was my sister was in Texas. My other one's still in California. I was the one that was most mobile. And not saying that I moved because of them, but I did think that part of why I moved was because I wanted to be close to them.
Right.
That one.
Absolutely.
Make sure they're okay. If anything happened, I would want to make sure that I
close.
would want to be at least a quick car drive away.
Right.
So that's why I thought it was a good idea. We moved to Portland, me and Teresa.
Well, but the impetus of that was the pandemic, wasn't it?
Oh, the pandemic was a big impetus. I mean, the pandemic was a terrible thing for humanity. I definitely think so.
Yes, it was.
But it was a good thing for me. Because
some good stuff came out of it.
Yeah,
even
I mean, I understand that I hate to sound like a kind of like a war profiteer or like, someone that benefits off of suffering, but the things that came about during that time, like I was concerned about my job because Teresa was living like very close with her aunt. Me and her both went on unemployment. We took a leave of absence from Costco. Right. And I went on unemployment. And just having literally they just gave me it was an added amount that was like the COVID
there was a
bonus.
Bump.
It was like
right.
$400 or something like that. Right. But I was making more money than I was working at Costco.
That was a common problem during the pandemic. There was so much extra benefit
that
people and it was every industry.
Yeah.
People didn't want to go back to work. They were making more money by not working.
It was I hate to say it, but it was the best time of my life. In my near recent life. Me and Teresa, and like I said earlier, I've always had a passion for video games my entire life. And Teresa also liked playing video games, but it really gave us an opportunity to really weirdly, she might even think of this as a completely different experience, but I felt like a huge bonding experience with her, having so much time just to be hey, let's concentrate on having fun together,
our passions.
Yeah, exactly. And there was no sort of irritation that comes with spending a lot of time with someone. There's always that irritation that sometimes happens where it's
normally,
man, I love this person, but there's that one thing that's driving me crazy about
I need some me time.
I felt like with the pandemic and the unemployment, it freed me from so many other stressful obligations and stuff in my life that it was only a bonding experience, basically. It was
very
only
positive.
It was extremely positive. And that was all just basically spent in a room with, my girlfriend at the time.
Well, she likes to sing.
Yeah.
How was she scratching that itch? Because you couldn't go out.
Huge problem. Yeah, definitely a huge problem. I think that was definitely an issue for her.
But at some point, you guys both decide to move up here, and obviously it had something to do with the fact that your parents were up here, and she's from Oregon.
We were monetarily, we had both saved during that time thousands of dollars.
All right, so you had a fund.
Yeah, we were doing nothing but hanging out together, playing video games and watching TV and movies.
Yeah, because you couldn't go out anywhere to spend money.
Yeah, and ordering food on it was just it was an ideal situation for I think a stress-free environment for two people to really have enjoy each other's company.
Right.
There was no social constraints. There was no jealousy because you would worry about oh, I wonder who she's going out with and talking to at a bar or something like that.
Right.
There's none of that aspect because you're just I know that we're hanging out today, and what are we gonna plan that's fun right now?
Yeah.
And then what can we plan that's fun tomorrow?
Right.
Living
in the moment.
Yeah, not having to worry about money. Not having to worry about any of the constraints that were really at the apex. What we had to work for in our lives, you know.
And then at some point, you guys are like, let's make this move.
Yeah, because we had saved so much. We were like, we literally had bought whatever we wanted during this time, and we've had money to put away. Let's go somewhere where we're not spending enough on as much on rent.
Did she want to also transfer to a Costco, or she ended up doing something
No,
different?
she wanted to quit.
Okay.
Teresa had a very vindictive streak to her. And not so much like in a evil way, and more in a catharsis sort of way.
Okay.
Whereas like, I want to do this to set myself free from the emotions that have been clinging to me about it.
Her experience at Costco was different than yours.
Very negative. So
Okay.
she worked on the front end. Like, front end during that time was like, they were slashing hours. They were like one assistant to every 2 cashiers.
Oh, jeez.
So, and then if it got busy enough, they take the assistants and they open up new registers, and then each cashier just boxes their own
by themselves. Yeah.
So she really, really had like an issue with that, which I can definitely see. It's too much work. She got injured. She hurt her back because of it too.
Yeah.
And
trying to lift something heavy when she should have just been cashiering.
Exactly.
Did you scout out different Costco's? Or
I did.
Did you go? Did you make a trip up and visit them, or?
Nope. I looked at after becoming manager and everything like that, I know how you can just look up sales.
Right.
For literally any building.
Yes.
And I looked at the lowest sales tire shop.
And it was ours?
And it was in the area.
Matt would not want to hear that.
I was like,
at the time.
I was like, I don't care. Well, because I didn't transfer into the tire shop though. I was like, because we had moved up here when I was still working down there.
Oh, right. But
so I moved up here, and I was still employed at that Costco, but I was on leave.
I thought when you first started working in our building, didn't you come right to the tire shop?
No.
You were front end first?
I was front end for like 4 to 6 months.
I don't even remember that.
Yeah, and I would come in every once in a while to help out, and then get sent back. I was like a cross trainer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Why don't I remember that? You have a good memory for most stuff. I don't, but it was 4 to 6 months before you got dedicated to the tire shop.
Yeah, dedicated in there, kind of tested by Matt, I feel like, and then he was like, you're good to soup.
We had you as a backup soup until you were like, no, I don't want to fucking do this shit anymore.
Well, what's funny, I feel like that kind of idea is more kind of pushed. Like, I don't really have an issue with souping. I just prefer not to. So, like, it's not like I have I recoil from it. It's just like, if I had the choice, I'd rather just be installing tires.
Right.
But I can totally do any job.
Yeah, of course you can. You've done it all in the tire shop.
That's more of my idea. Like, if I'm needed to, I would definitely do it, but, I don't have to.
Right. It's not your preference.
Yeah. Like, I've already been up, like I don't see myself going through the warehouse side of career advancement.
Right, because you did go to that career fair thing that they had to kind of explore options at corporate.
At the more corporate level, which honestly it's in my opinion a much better work environment. My biggest issue with my current I don't know where I'm at currently, or at least my biggest gripe, is that it's hard for me now to work more with vast amounts of the public.
Oh, you don't want to be so forward facing to the members.
Exactly. Like, I'm really, really, really good, and I really, really enjoy working with like one person and making sure that they have a fantastic experience from start to end.
Right.
Then trying my best to make sure that 100 people have an amazing, because it's impossible. You literally, you're going to work yourself to the bone trying to please everyone.
If you take the path of moving up within the warehouse to like manager, AGM, that is what you're doing. You're trying to take care of 100 or 1,000 people a day.
And even if the farther that you move up in the warehouse, that only increases. Like you're not just dealing with the members, you're also dealing with the needs of all the employees under you.
Yes.
Like it only increases. That's why I've always said, like, especially in retail, the higher up you go, the more of a slave you become to people.
Yeah.
Like all you do is, like, especially in middle management, unless you're making the rules, you're obeying the rules.
Yeah.
And the rules only become more strict because there's literal laws involved.
And there's more pressure on you as you move up.
Yeah.
You're not only dealing with the customers / members, but you're also dealing with the subordinates below you.
Yeah.
Now you're dealing with all that fucking headache.
Yeah. I feel better when I have a member that calls me on the phone and I'm like, hey, I can help you. I can help you out. Yeah. Come in here and ask for me.
Yeah.
And I'll help you. And then they come in, they ask for me, I help them out, and then I make sure that they can get into the best possible, like, tire.
Or you can handle their problem.
And then I'm able to hand it off at the end of the day also and be like, here you go. I can guarantee that everything on this job has been done, up to my own standards.
Yes. So you got
because I've been here.
So you took care of them, got them for the right tire, the right vehicle, and you're going to meet their needs, and let's get you an appointment, and it's done.
Which is hard to do when there's like 300 people that you deal with a day.
Right. Right.
But yeah, that's pretty much my story up until now. I mean, me and Teresa broke up, obviously, but that was like more of a low impact sort of.
Yeah. But now, so is your dad still dabbling in some side work while he's up there, or is he actually retired now?
He's doing all kinds of stuff. So he works at
you told me at the beginning of the podcast
school.
that he can't sit still.
Yeah.
Is he still like that?
Well, like he's he drove a bus for a while for one of the school districts here.
Okay.
For a few months. Works in the library at Battleground High School.
Okay.
For a while, just checking in books.
Yeah.
I think he's just trying to keep busy.
Right, because he doesn't do downtime well.
Not at all. Not at all.
And the property they have, is it pretty much what he wants it to be, or are there projects that he wants to do on the property?
For now. They've got their own little his own little field. He's got his chicken coop. He's got his veggie garden.
Cool.
My mom's got her flower garden.
Nice.
A nice big area. They've got a big fire pit. But it's still like a work in progress. You know what? It's basically a work in progress every year.
Well, when you own property like that, there's always something to do. Yes.
Yeah. Like I said, my parents are in their 70s, and this last fall, they're just like, oh, we have this little roundabout, this tiny little roundabout thing at our house, but I don't like the fact that there's giant rocks in there. So my mom's like, I'm gonna move. She's 77. So I'm gonna move these 80-90 pound stones out of this roundabout area so I can just plant I'm like, Mom, you're going to work yourself to death.
You're gonna break a hip.
Yeah. Yeah. They'll see people on the side of the road, government workers that are shaving the trees.
Oh, right, county employees or whatever. Employees. Yeah.
My dad will be like, hey, what do you do with all these wood chips? And they're like, oh, we just dump them. It's like, hey, can you just take them to this address? And we'll just have them drop off literal dump trucks full of wood chips. And then he'll be like, I don't know what I'm going to do with all these.
But I need to find somewhere to spread this.
I got to spread this somewhere in my garden.
So the poor guy gets bored and he starts creating stuff for him to do.
Oh, yeah. He's got a huge workshop. I mean, he's been collecting tools his whole life.
That's fucking cool, man.
So, I mean, honestly, he could probably build a house if he wanted to.
Jesus.
Yeah.
Or at least he would have everything he needed to do it. Damn. Let me check the runtime. We're probably coming to the end of it.
Yeah. That's pretty much the end anyway. I'll run to the restroom.
Yeah. Dude, nice. We've gone almost 2 hours. That's perfect. All right. We can do a proper cheers again. So seriously, dude.
Cheers.
Interesting conversation. I really appreciate you taking the time, and we did go like an hour and 54 minutes.
Oh, flew by.
Dude,
honestly,
it was fucking great. Great
so
conversation.
Quick.
This is why I like doing this stuff. So I appreciate you taking the time, and I will now pause it and pack the shit up.